Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Lillian Magallanes, and I'm going to facilitate the session today. We have our technical support person with us, Sergi, assisting with any technical troubleshooting should you need it. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping notes. As you know, this session is being recorded, so you will get access to the recording as well as any other recordings for today's conference shortly after the event. This session is 60 minutes, and we'll be taking questions and answers at the end of the presentation. There are a few features to this webinar platform I would like to clarify for you. There is a chat component. This is for general conversations and any dialogue that you want to have. I'll be monitoring the chat, so if you have any quick notes, I'll definitely respond to them. But this is definitely mostly geared for any other chats you want to have with any other folks in the audience. We have a Q&A component, so feel free to use this section to submit your questions to the speaker. If you see a question that you like or one that you would like us to ask, use the upvote function feature. This is going to move the question up in the sequence. But I think that's it. So hopefully you guys are all excited. Again, I work for Bluebeam, so we're excited to be a sponsor of this session as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our presenters, Jack and Daniel. So I'll let them take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Lillian, and great to be a part of this. Now, let me just get everything set up. So, look, really exciting to be here for this virtual event and for KanBIM, sorry about that, for KanBIM and SASBIM. Look, I love the work that KanBIM's been doing over the years. Being obviously from my accent, I'm not quite Canadian, I'm Australian. It's a little bit late here, unfortunately. Would love to be there in person. Travel a lot to US and to Canada, but I guess a lot of my background has been in the whole BIM and digital construction world. So this is a really, really interesting time for us to be here today and talk to you about from the other side of the world, other side of the world, but also the other side of the areas of operations and maintenance of railways, and how do we drive digital twins for the built world in rail. So all about connecting to being smarter and more sustainable in what we do in that space. So we'll talk to you a little bit about that. But before we do, quick bit about ourselves is, so myself, Daniel Kalnins, so I'm our VP of Infrastructure Solutions, based down here in Melbourne, Australia. Often a lot more mobile through all these outside of these COVID crazy times, but normally on a plane very regularly up to Toronto and up to the US. So very looking forward to the time when we can do that again. But a lot of my background's actually, as I said, had been on site as an engineer about driving digital construction solutions, about being smarter about what we did in design, construction, and handover into operations, whether it be oil and gas, mining, railways, and buildings, and how do we drive those smarts and ideas so that we can do something better in what we do. And Jack Chivers with us as well, so based in Sydney, Australia, is our...
Hey everyone, how are we?
Thanks, Jack. Jack, our product manager for WillowRail. And of course, I should mention that whilst we've been in North America for a good 4 years or so now, that just recently we now have, last 6 months, have on the ground team in Toronto. So really excited to actually, it's our first office set up in Canada officially. So really good timing for this, because we're really excited about making really Toronto and Canada our North American hub for our infrastructure side of our business as well. So, but great, further ado, I'll jump into the next parts. But so what we're going to run you through is pretty simple, is just quick. I'm going to give you a quick introduction to WillowRail and around some of the problems that we're solving and why, and a quick high level overview. And then Jack's going to jump in and give you a great live demonstration so that we can just get right into it and see it. And please encourage lots of questions as we're going through, and jump into it. Feel free to ask us anything. And after the session as well, happy to follow up and answer some of those deep questions that you have, because we understand that this space can be, it all sounds nice, and being somebody who's been there and done it in some of the operations and some of the construction, I think the first thing that you often see, you go, yeah, that looks nice, but is it real? And I think that's why we wanted to give you a real live demonstration, but happy to follow up as well. So especially sustainability and built environment for the topic of today. I think this headline comes straight from our website, but is so connected to what we're talking about, which is around digital twins that make our world sustainable, connected, intuitive, and innovative. Because that's really what we set out to do, was to drive something a lot smarter and sustainable. And really the key things of how it linking in for that sustainability of the built environment is really on two key points: that optimization of what actually happens in the railways, really about changing that reactive maintenance type workflows into condition-based and into predictive. So we're not just waiting for equipment to fail. We're not just fixing it on a regular schedule as to hope that maybe that fixes it, but we're actually being smarter about using condition monitoring systems and using the smarts of what we collect in the field to start being predictive about how we move that forward and how we be smarter about that as well. So WillowRail, who are we? Is always a good question. So WillowRail itself is a joint venture between Willow as the premier digital twin company for the built world and Structon Rail. And Structon is Europe's largest privately owned rail maintainer. And one of the things that's really interesting about Structon is that Netherlands took a lot of performance-based management of contracts of their railway networks in the early 2000s and really pushed the boundaries of what is condition-based management and smarts and predictive maintenance. So when we connect that world together and connect that to the smart digital twin technology together, that's where I guess we've found a lot of our sweet spot on what a lot of our customers tell us is that connecting domain knowledge with smart technology is really the key, because you don't want to just throw technology at something, at a solution. Is that you need that leadership and smarts to make sure that we do it in a smart way, we do it in a measured way, and in the most simplest way to actually drive the right outcomes. So that's core of, I guess, what we do and who we are as a business. So what's the call to action? And I guess really why do we exist is quite an interesting time of where we are, even before pre-COVID times, is that the future of rail, thankfully, is finally becoming digital. And somebody who's been around railways for the last 10 years of my career is that seeing this real emergence of smarts in rolling stock that have really started becoming into automated, self-diagnosing, becoming a lot smarter, control and signaling systems that are getting changed out all around the world. But the enablement of originally cloud technology and then 4G, 5G type technology out there is what's really starting to change the game of how some of these sensors, it's really that emergence and groundswell of technology all together that we can start doing some of the smarts that we can do with things like WillowRail. And not only that, but you get IoT that's presenting a real problem to traditional operations. You can't actually avoid it anymore. You actually, I think, had many conversations with clients years ago who said, look, our solution to dealing with IoT is that we ignore it. And we just, because it causes security risks and problems. But these days, whether you like it or not, IoT is built into the equipment and has to run. So needing to make sure that we embrace it, because you look at, there's millions of new devices coming on, a million new devices every hour, a lot of connected devices by 2030. and the amount of data by 2025 is just astronomical that we have to deal with. So how do we do that and deal with it is really that when you look at all that, you actually go, well, the problem's not, even right now, today, the problem that when you look at an existing railway network, is not that we don't have enough data. It's actually that 73% of the data isn't actually analyzed. And the reason why is because it's often in those black box siloed solutions that can't talk to other systems, or you can't talk to the asset data and to try and connect a condition monitoring or an IoT sensor in the field to an asset management system onto a map is often sounds so simple, but often such a tricky process to be able to understand that without having the right platform and without having the right approach there. So not only is the data not analyzed, is that when you try and jump between all those different systems, that you find there's about a 40% drop in productivity. So that's kind of, I guess, the real drivers on what push us and what drive us to succeed in doing something a bit smarter. So because of that, and because of that big problem and challenge that we had, we very early on, we partnered up with Microsoft to be our preferred partner on cloud technology, because they're spending billions of dollars of investment into how to deal with and taking data from IoT sensors. So they're building really the world's computer is being built today. If you listen to Satya, which is what the core focus of Microsoft is looking at, like what they did back with Windows 95, is that starting to take that to the built world. So we partnered up with them to be able to be that real plumbing and connection into all those sensors in the field, because that's the way of how we start being smarter and how we start taking from, as often call it, from dark to cloud of some of these old existing railway networks. And ourselves as WillowRail really for Microsoft become that interface for the rail industry. So what is it? Good question. Is WillowRail is a fully integrated asset management system aligned to the ISO 55000 standards, really about bringing those siloed tools together into a geospatial platform and making sure that we are open protocol principle through and through, so that we don't become another siloed solution, that we can become a platform that gets built on and drives smarts and drives analytics. So, I mean, if in essence, it's really about how we take from reactive maintenance into condition-based and predictive maintenance. That is our core focus of what we do and what gets us up in the morning and what gets us excited. And Jack will take you through an example in a moment. But to give you what does it actually look like as a taster? So this is one of the first things that we did, with Structon being a maintainer themselves, also own and operate a lot of the networks across Europe and across the Netherlands. And what you're seeing here is the very start of what we did as the first piece a couple of years ago, starting with the control center in Utrecht in middle of the Netherlands. And Jack will show you a live part of this, but how not just smart operational centers, but now smart fault centers where problems on the network are managed and tracked 24/7 really smartly in a whole new way, and where you can start to see that whole Uber style maintenance of how we actually tracking issues and faults and people across that network as well. So when you look at benefits, so what are the benefits? Three key benefits that we look at is, the first one is all about improving network performance, whether it be a heavy haul rail, light rail network, middle of downtown Toronto, or whether it be a passenger metro or subway, is all about connecting that holistic view from asset performance. So taking that live data from, maybe it's live sensors across SCADA systems, across IoT sensors like POS on point monitoring systems, and then connecting that to the static data. So whether it's a IBM Maximo or Infor or other free asset management system, connecting that to your spatial data. So a lot of the times through whether it be Esri's ArcGIS, for example, and then making sure that we can embed algorithms. So not just present and connect that data, but actually have embedded algorithms that we can start showing some smarts on, like forecasting what the health of the track is actually going to be in 6 or 12 or 18 months. And what that starts to allow us to do is that we can start to improve track availability up to 99.9% availability, and start to reducing our track defects and maintenance costs across the whole network. So that's really fundamental to one of the core drivers of why and what we do. The second point is all about single source of truth. So often talked about, but often really elusive to try and track and really simplify, but really making sure that we have real-time transparency into asset performance. So I don't know about, I'm sure there's some people out there, but we see many times, whether it be in new construction or whether it be in operations, that you spend 3 weeks out of every 4 weeks actually trying to talk about and update process of what you did the last 4 weeks. So making sure that we can start feeding that live data through, so you actually can see what's the runtime on the network, what's the passenger count, how are we tracking, what are the speed restrictions on the network at that point in time. And the last one is really about getting live data in the hands of the workforce. So in order to get to predictive maintenance, you not only need condition-based data, but we need to collect data in the field, structured data, smart and simple data, in the ways that is going to actually benefit the people in the field, not just create another form that's going to annoy the people in the field. We actually give them smarts and give them a digital twin in through a mobile app that Jack will take you through in the moment. But it's all about having that real-time location tracking of what's actually happening, where asset repair status and database, and that can start feeding back into our overall algorithms and smarts of how is that network actually performing, how the areas, and how do we actually get smarter about this to start taking unique solutions to each one of those areas. So it's a really quick intro of how we deal with some of those problems and data, the IoT sensors in the field, and how we look at some of those challenges and problems, and really about some of the areas that WillowRail is doing. But I'll pass over now to Jack to give you a live demo directly so you can see it and touch and feel.
Fantastic. Thank you very much there, DK. Let me just sort out the old screen share here, and we'll have that one up and coming. DK, if you can just give me an audio cue to make sure that I've actually got my screen up and running.
Oh,
fantastic. I wouldn't want to start without this working.
Sorry, just waiting for it, I think. There we go.
Not a problem. So actually, just before I take everyone through a live demo, I did just want to go and walk everybody through that control center video wall. So as you can see, as DK was just pointing out there, COVID has happened. We're all working from home, and unfortunately, I don't have 8 60-inch TV screens to be able to run a live demonstration for you of this platform. So PowerPoint is my next best friend. What I will do is walk you through this. What is the control center? As we've talked through, it's basically a nice big screen at one end of the operations center that will allow these front office engineers to be able to quickly look, view and assess incoming tickets that are coming through. So being able to triage this information, where previously that was actually sitting on all these siloed systems across their amazing desktops. As you can see, they've got 3 curved monitors. When we went over there, they actually asked for a 4th one because they have so many programs to deal with. So what we did is we worked with them and we came up with this solution of the control center video wall, which I can talk you through now. And we'll run through it left to right, and you just note the little red star that pops up on each screen. So in your top left there, what we've got here is each contractual area for this current network is highlighted in the region. You'll notice that there's 3 colors being represented there. One's red, light gray, and dark gray. And if we draw our focus to the light gray and the red, the light gray and red areas are where the contracts are currently being managed and maintained. by WillowRail in the Netherlands, and red is where actually an IoT alarm trigger has been has been triggered. So what we're saying there is quickly drawing visual attention to this particular contract region where they know that they have an alarm that's been triggered and requires urgent action. Just below that one, we actually have a live weather map. For those of you who have been to mainland Europe, England is a fantastic weather break for the Netherlands, but doesn't work all the time. So what they do need to know is when inclement weather is coming through, as they understand that that's going to cause more staff to have to be on schedule, as it's going to increase the amount of faults that do occur. As we come here to the center of the screen, what you can see here is actually the hero of the screen, or the hero of the control center video wall. This is a main area where these front office engineers can not only see on the right-hand panel of this screen a quick summary of the tickets that require action, but they can also see a visual representation of where that ticket or where that fault has actually occurred. This is just being able to quickly tie this information together so that they can contact the right work group out in the field to go and action it. As you can see in the top right, just moving over, here we have the telephony system, any stock standard call center metrics, inbound, outbound, dropped calls, average handling time, etc., just to be able to make sure that they're operating as efficiently as possible. And then last but not least, just below that, as Strickland themselves are running on a performance-based contract, which means for them that they need to be operating within a certain limit. It stands to reason that they themselves have their own internal performance KPIs, and if they can have this up on a screen, visible to everybody, everybody knows how they're tracking for that week and that day. We'll just move on to 2 more screens before we get into the live demo. The next one is our KPI dashboard. As Dan was talking about, a single source of truth and live reporting. So previous problem that we keep coming up against is if I want to know the current standard of operations inside my network, I have to wait a few weeks because I require somebody to go and collect all this data, transform it themselves, and produce a report for me. With the WillowRail platform, what we're doing is we're actually taking inputs that occur inside the platform and immediately being able to provide a calculation, standardized calculation of how that network is performing. Obviously, the immediate benefits here are as those tickets are coming in and as those faults are being reported and as they're being handled in the real time, here we can see what our network punctuality is, for example. Next, coming on to our alerts and alarm management. So here we are taking these underlying systems that are driving this network and being able to either manage those alarms that are coming from those systems or creating those alarms within the WillowRail platform to be able to then action against those alarms, send a work group out into the field and have them work through that fault. So no longer do you have multiple siloed systems creating all sorts of alarms and noise. What we're trying to do here is cut through and be able to say, okay, this is our highest alarm, this is the system it's associated with, here's all the related information. Please assign that out and have somebody go and fix it within that contracted or scheduled time. And I will just quickly jump over into the live demonstration, just make sure I've got everything set up here for you. And I will run you through the presentation. Bear with me. Great. DK, just confirm that that's all coming up.
All looks good, Jack.
Fantastic. I was about to say the silence there had me worried. No, all good. Great. So what I've just run you through there, front office engineer, they're looking at the control center, but what are they actually seeing when they're on their desktop or on their laptop in front of them? So this is the WillowRail platform. They'd log in, and what they do upon logging in is select the appropriate network, which in this case, inside this demonstration environment, is the Utrecht line. This is a live copy of our production environment. I'm not allowed in the production environment anymore. I keep breaking it, so they've given me this nice little sandbox to play in. When they log in, they have a few options available at their fingertips immediately. They want to change context to be able to see something in potentially a better light. They can swap over to aerial imagery, and then what they can choose is they want to go in and just zoom in a little bit further, just to be able to provide them a little bit more context of what's going on, where they are in relation to their query that day. So Two of these journeys I'll be walking you through is what does an asset manager do when they're running through WillowRail, and then what does that front office engineer do when they receive a query and need to create a ticket and shepherd that out to a work group in the field. So I've immediately come into the WillowRail platform. I've been able to change my base map. I can even go through and say I want to go and see all the catenary wires available on this particular track section. Here I just go, select a layer, wait for it to load up, and there we go, we've painted it on. So here I have complete context of my surroundings. I can choose if I want to, we'll see if we can go there. We'll pivot, and it provides me again just another factor, another piece of context of what it is that I'm looking at. For the ease of demonstration, I'll just keep on a dark base map at the moment, and we will just home back out over the top of the network, turn off the overhead wires just to keep the performance up, and then we'll go and dig through try and find an asset that we need to go and view and review today and be able to see all the related information. So this is our initial implementation of a base map, layers, chain inch, etc. But it doesn't stop there. We've got visions to start implementing not only these pieces, but also the BIM models around stations, and as well as integrating our point cloud systems to be able to provide a full immersive experience for somebody sitting in the field to be able to help diagnose and address any faults that they see. Digging then into the list of assets. So we've got asset categories. We've filtered it down. We've got track assets. I'll go and select a switch. And then we want to go and filter that switch. There's quite a number of them, as you can see. If I keep going, the loading will keep going through. So I'll filter quickly down to switch 85B. And then we have a few things happen here at the same time. So we have the GIS center in. We've pinpointed the exact location of where this asset is. And then we have all of the related information appear. So first we have all of the details pop up. This is just high-level detail information about this asset, general information if I'm just after a quick inquiry. Next, we have the properties. So important things to know is what type of sleeper does this switch sit on, and what's the curve ratio of this switch that I'm looking at right now in the field. Next, we have the up-and-coming maintenance tasks. So what needs to be done? When does it need to be done? And is it next week or is it in a month's time? Then we have the historical tasks. So these are anything that has been, any faults that have been created against this asset. They're all collected in a single spot. So this allows us to go in, have a look, and see what was the latest work that was done. And last but not least, we actually have a IoT sensor integrated into this exact switch. So if I open it up just a little bit further for everybody, I hope you can all see it. And we'll just hide that. So here we have a system known as POS. What is POS? POS is actually measuring the electrical output of a switch motor as it moves in a normal and then a reverse direction. This is important as it actually lets an operator or an asset manager in this instance in the office be able to understand how is this switch moving and functioning. So to be able to provide me a little bit more context, I can turn on some historical readings. In fact, across both of them. And here I can see a correlating problem. So I have a higher output occurring at a particular point as it's moving in both a normal and a reverse direction. Hasn't triggered any internal alarms at POS itself, but here I can indicate and see that yes, there is a problem. It provides me more confidence to make the call that we need to send somebody out there to please go and investigate. And then we'll step through into the ticketing section, and I'll be able to show you how that works. So we jump into the ticketing here, and now I'm wearing the shoes of that front office engineer that we just saw earlier. So what I'll do is I'll go and create a new ticket. We'll save everybody the hassle of viewing all of that. And today we have Daniel is reporting the ticket. Daniel works for Willow, and that's certainly not his phone number. Then we will make Gerard, he's our front office engineer today. He's the gentleman making sure that this ticket does get closed in a timely manner, as he's ultimately responsible. I'm doing a fuzzy search, too many assets coming up on 85B. So we'll refine it down, and there we go, and find that exact switch that we were looking at just before. And you'll notice how that asset is then just painted on the map. What we can do is pass through some incident details. We can assign a priority. How urgent does this ticket need to be resolved? Again, taking into consideration that we are on a performance-based contract in this example. So we'll mark it as urgent. And yes, this is going to have an effect on our KPIs. Next, what I want to do, in order to correctly guide somebody to this location, I need to assign them an access point. One of the regulations in implementing this contract is that they cannot cross a live track. So we do have a list of access points where I can select and ensure that a front office engineer can help assist guide a work group to that right location as quickly as possible. We can even pass them through some access notes. And then last but not least, what we need to do in this instance is assign a work group. So if I just zoom right out, we'll come over, we'll recenter the map. And again, for the purpose of this demonstration, we can see that both Daniel is available, although Daniel's 18 minutes away, or we have myself, and I'm only 6 minutes away in this instance. So if I was to select Daniel, what you can see is a route navigation appear. We also have Daniel's estimated time of arrival, and we can even see the shortcode for Daniel's specialty. So we know that Daniel, in this instance, is an infrastructure specialist. He'll be the right person to send on the job. But Daniel's 18 minutes away, and that's going to impact our timeline. So we actually want to select myself. And then we have that route navigation load up. Here we can see that this work group has had the assigned ticket. And before I save it, just for everybody's peace of mind, I've got my mobile device just being emulated here. I'm driving it by right next to me. So what we will do in this instance, I'll just quickly save this ticket. Swap over, and here you can see it come through. So what you saw there, and I'll center this one, what you saw there is the ticket that was just created here within the platform. Again, I was the asset manager. I found an asset. I saw a potential problem. I've contacted our front office engineer. They've been able to quickly fill out this information and then even pass through, in this case, an incident report. You can see that same incident report has come through onto the device, and a few things that we've made available just for ease of use. And I'll turn up my volume, so I hope it does come through, but a few things around usability with this mobile application. So in talking with these work groups, they generally have their work device on a cradle in the vehicle. So we sat down and we figured how could they more quickly integrate or use or interact even with this ticket in a safe manner. And that for us was tantamount. There's different rules and regulations around the world with using a mobile device while driving. So we had to think about the easiest or safest way to interact. So the first one was being able to listen to that description of a ticket, so not having to stop and read, which can be dangerous.
Switch 85B, the POS sensor is reporting a fault. Can you please investigate? Cheers, Gerard.
So there we are.
Switch 85.
There we go. We don't want to replay that. There we are. We can be able to quickly listen to that ticket and to be able to just continue focusing on the road and understand what the incident is that I'm approaching. Then we have the ability to either swipe and decline, or we can swipe and accept. So in this instance, if I was to decline, I can't just keep fobbing off work. What we are doing here is actually capturing a reason of, hey, you wanting to decline this piece of work, why? And we're capturing every change against this ticket is being captured in an audit log, in which I can show you at the end of this demo as well. So if we hit cancel, it comes back, it's reassigned to me. I have to action it. I can't skip out. I need to action this ticket, so we'll accept it for this instance. And what that will do is take me into navigation. So as you can see, what I will do, just for everybody's comfort, I'll pull this one just off to the side. And so you can see this navigation that was visible in the office via my computer. You can see it's also the exact same navigation which is visible on my mobile device. So what we've got here is live traffic routing. You can see just here, there's a bit of a problem crossing a main road, or in the Netherlands, it's probably a river, let's be fair. And what we've got is being able to accurately choose and see where that work group is, what route it is they're going to take, how quickly they're going to get there. And we also know that that information is being passed directly into the hands of that work group. So what we will do is we'll continue on. I'll say that I've arrived, and we'll get into our confirmation screen. So what we can see here again, the same, a recap of that incident report that we passed through, as well as those access notes. In this instance, I'll mark I've arrived, and then we go and perform a safety check. So in this instance, we can say, this is probably my only experience of the Netherlands. We'll say the road is icy, and we'll add that risk. So something that I've noted. We also do have here the option to be able to exit a ticket in case of emergency services required, just to be able to correctly mark how these tickets are being handled. I'll mark it safe to work, and then we get into the fault diagnosis section. So we have the correct asset, we have a reported fault, and then I need to add an estimated time of repair. So in this instance, what I can do, I'll say it's going to take me an hour. You probably all just saw there that my phone's running in local time here in Australia. So it is actually about 20 to midnight. Well, just getting a prompt reminder, hey, please add your estimated time of repair, and please confirm that you are on site. So last but not least, what I want to do is actually add an image. So here, in terms of adding an image, for the sake of the webinar, we'll give it a thumbs up, and we'll attach that to the ticket. So we're capturing before and after imagery within this ticket workflow. Why are we doing it? First of all, with proof of work, we can see that, hey, there was a problem, this happened. And actually, what one of our goals is about taking this before and after and being able to then, with time, be able to identify that, so we can even just get an automatic indication of what that problem has been, based off a library of faults that have been recorded previously. So the image has been uploaded, and we'll confirm the diagnosis. Yep, the POS sensor is causing a problem. Now, as a work group out in the field, I don't have access to my laptop, but I want to go and see what that POS reading is. So what we'll do is we'll go into the ticket. I can see the maintenance history, so anything that's previously happened. I could even see the planned task that we had up. But what I want to do is go and see that POS graph. So here, in the sake of the screen, I want to go and turn on all the previous readings, and I actually want to go and turn on that reverse reading for me. And here, what we have is the exact same POS graph that I was displaying earlier. We can pull that one up even. So reverse graph, we'll go and turn it all on. We'll pull it up. And here we can see, look, it's the same reading that's happening across both devices. So directly addressing that problem around siloed systems. How do I get this information into the hands of the work group then and there, without them having to preemptively potentially download it, print off a report, take it in the vehicle with them, if they were even in the office to be able to access a printer. Here we are passing this information through live onto their device, so that they can, with confidence, diagnose this fault, get out there in the field, fix it, and then be able to see their fix in real time as well. So bear with me, we will go back to the ticket that we're looking at, and we'll finish the ticket off in this instance. So this work groups, they've finished their time, they've resolved this fault, and it's now incident resolved. So yep, we're passing through a final status. We can see my risks. In actual fact, this is no longer a risk anymore. I don't actually need to report it, not a problem, we can remove it. And then I want to say, look, this is the cause reason. So the part is broken, but the cause was unknown. And here we can go down and say, yep, not a problem. We soldered on the cable. So here we are through this pick list. One of the problems we previously encountered was that anybody was putting any information in, and it became quite hard to understand what an ongoing cause or ongoing problem that was occurring against a fault. So by having a selected pick list, we can be able to help really sharpen up those results and understand and gain those insights as if there is a recurring fault against an asset. So we have no pass through a repair comment. And don't have any general comments here. And I even have the option here right at the end to even, again, as previously stated, uploading that after picture. I'll skip over that, and it's going to prompt and remind me, are you sure you want to skip this step? I'll take the liberty in this case and say, yes, thank you, I'm all good. And as a work group, my job is done. I've received a ticket, I've gone through the process, I've been able to repair it, I've been able to see all the information that was used to analyze initially that fault, and I'm good. I've finished my role. Now, as a front office engineer in the field, I'm curious. I want to see what was actually done. I don't have this mobile device in my hand, so the first place I'd want to take myself is onto that repair fault. So that same final report I just filled out, great. Added the description, being able to see both before and after, any comments, and here I can even see the image that we uploaded. So I can see in real time, being passed back through the process of that ticket, exactly what's being done in the field. And if I want to ensure to be able to see all changes that have occurred, I can just go and click on the change log here. So as the change log loads up, probably why do we keep the change log? Now the change log is immutable proof of what has occurred against this ticket. This allows us to take a date and time stamp. We can see the user who made those changes, which in this case was myself via a mobile device. And then we can see all the fields that changed as I was updating that ticket. And that goes all the way back to when this ticket was first actioned by this user on their mobile device. I mean, for this instance, we can even see the media that was uploaded at that particular step, at that particular time. Great, and so that concludes the demonstration of the WillowRail application, just taking you again through those two workflows there, one of an asset manager, viewing and reviewing an asset, and the other being a front office engineer, receiving that ticket, being able to create it on the spot, assign it to a work group, have that work group go through that flow, and be able to see that information captured in a standardized way available on both platforms, addressing their data siloed needs.
Thanks, Jack. And look, really hope that was informative and useful for everybody. Look, all about taking you through how do digital twins work for railways and how do we actually drive towards that more sustainable built environment. So I hope that was really useful for a lot of you today to really get you started and kick off for the day. I know you're going to have some great presentations for the rest of today, and really glad that we could be a part of that. But any questions, and happy to answer any questions that you might have, and happy to jump into that now if you'd like to.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Jack, for that presentation. I have to say, I've definitely been a fan of Willow for quite some time. Ian presented at a Build conference, I think maybe last year, almost 2 years ago, about digital twin, and I was highly impressed with what your company is doing. So this is a great, a great presentation to see what you're also doing in Rail. It looks like we're having some questions being typed in at the moment, but I'll go ahead and kick it off with a question we received. How much time does it take to bring WillowRail operational and start? Hold on, let me read that again. How much time does it take to bring WillowRail operational and start gaining benefits?
Good question. So yeah, it's always an interesting one, because I think when you get to some enterprise systems, they say like, oh yeah, great, we'll come back and see you in about 12 months and you'll have something to set up. But I guess one of the big things that we really wanted to drive straight away was to have something up in a few weeks so that you can start to look and feel and drive it straight away. And it's all about starting with something simple, of simple use cases, but in generally like 4 weeks or so, you have something up and running and live to actually be able to see and touch and feel, but so that you can get a look and drive of what's actually happening day to day.
Yeah. Wow, 4 weeks, that's pretty impressive. We did get a little bit of excitement when you were showing the swipe left, swipe right feature. I kind of noticed someone making a comment.
Hey, we take our inspiration from wherever we can find it.
That's great. We did have a question come in from Mauricio. He says, hello guys, I'm from Brazil and our train rails are very old. How could we improve this condition with this amazing app?
Oh, great. Well, great question. Marcio, I think it is. Yeah. Look, really, I mean, trains are very old in a lot of places around the world. And I think one of the things that we start with is just understanding what's actually there on the network. So we find that we can you don't have to connect 20 different systems to get benefit a lot of the time. It's actually just taking one type of asset class on one. So maybe it's a switch, maybe it's a track, maybe it's one type of sensor that you've got across the network, and solving a workflow for that problem. That's where we find benefit works well. It's different for every network, but what is that core thing that's actually driving value quickly? It might be that especially across old networks, you might at least be running track analysis, geometry analysis across those tracks through Ramsys or RSys or something similar. And you just want to make that actually available to the rest of the whole team, the whole network, as well as some of the people out in the field. That might just be the very first simple use case that you start with. Because you don't need that whole how do you eat an elephant type situation. Is that you just start small and solve those problems. Make sure it's adding value first before we jump on any further.
That's very valuable. Make sure you're adding value first. That's great. Another question for both of you. With data coming in from different sources, have you come across a challenge with asset naming and classification inconsistencies? If so, how have you resolved it? Yeah,
great question. I think one of the big challenges of there's lots of good, I guess, asset classification systems, but there's not something when you're trying to drive towards condition-based and predictive maintenance, there's not something out there that actually tells you about how to connect that up from start to finish, and something that works with flexible old 100-year-old, 200-year-old networks, as well as the brand new driverless train system. So I guess the core of what we did was really about putting together we call a generic data model, which is all about if you just took the core components we need to drive predictive maintenance across the network, what is that data that we actually need to collect, no matter what asset classification system, maybe it's unit class, maybe it's something else that it's connected to, so that we can then take that data and organize it in the right way to drive those real-time KPIs and into predictive maintenance.
Okay. And then the final question we have, we're almost running out of time, is what is the biggest challenge during implementation? So it's always a challenge when you're implementing new technology. You're dealing with, not only the human factor, but the technology factor. There's a couple of headaches that go with it. But what would you say is the biggest challenge during this implementation?
Great. Jack, do you want to take that one, mate?
Yeah, there's a few challenges there when we are approaching implementation, and it probably comes 3 different ways. I would say it is the technology, it is the people and the processes, and then it is the communication. Is probably one of the biggest challenges is communicating. Okay, what are we trying to achieve? What's the goals? Where are we actually delivering value throughout this implementation? It's sometimes we meet people that go, okay, but what are you doing for us? And then sometimes we see people and then the kids in a candy shop, oh, I want everything. And then we go, okay, how about we help you solve, as DK was just saying earlier, how about we help you solve that one real bugbear that you have in your system, and then we'll take the next step together after that. And by taking that approach against communication, so we're helping you solve a problem, we're building trust, and then we're showing you that, yes, there is a solution in this application. So to circle back and answer that question, biggest challenge is communication, and then we solve that by steps together in the right direction, delivering value at each step, building that trust and progressing forward.
Yeah, I like what you said there, Daniel, building the trust, communication. I think once you show someone the value that they're receiving, like how this is going to transform their day-to-day operations, it's going to, cut down, let's say, 20 steps of what they're used to doing down to maybe just a few. And I think that's the moment that they realize, this is great. And then you start to see things kind of flowing from that moment. So I've seen that many times throughout my career. It's always finding that right person or group who's going to champion the change, and then owning the process together. And then, you start to see sort of an internal change happening. And I would say that's probably as a consultant, that's probably the best part of the process. There's certainly a roller coaster of emotions that go with it, the beginning, the middle, and the end. But finding that moment when you have someone's aha moment just makes everything worth it. So absolutely. I think, yeah.
Totally
all right. So that's all of the time we have for today. So I want to thank, both our presenters for a wonderful presentation. Again, from Willow, you guys always set the standard really high, always highly impressed with the content you produce and what you're doing in the AEC industry today. So it's amazing. You guys are definitely imagining the possibilities out there. I also want to thank everyone who took the time to attend this presentation. Again, just as a reminder, this session has been recorded, and it will be shared with you shortly after the event. Don't forget to join the Kanban mailing list to hear about future events and initiatives. And then also the next presentation coming up at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, which will be later this morning, will be modular MEP fabrication in Revit, implementation of contemporary energy standards in Canada. So make sure to check out that session. So with that, I want to thank you again, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers. Hope to see you soon. Hey.
Yes, same.
Have a great day. Cheers.
Bye-bye.